My latest project is to make a Dalek. It's a Dalek with a very long nose, but a Dalek nonetheless. So the Buick has got an annoying exhaust leak. It's been difficult to find, and it's had it for decades, I think. We thought we fixed it. We machined the exhaust manifold, but it's back. So I did my YouTube checks, and they said if you get your shock back and you put your exhaust of the shock vac into your hose and shove that up the exhaust pipe, and then squirt some soapy water onto the bit where you think the leak is, you might see bubbles. So I had material down here that I could have machined up parts and whatever, but this is hopefully a one-off job. So I got some rag and I wrapped it around the end of this hose, because that pipe normally screws onto this large thread here. I'm using one of these bits that came with the shock vac and just filled up the void with rolled up some rag and then taped it on. And then this one, I've got a bit of rag here, and that is a fairly neat fit in there. So I may need someone to hold it in so it doesn't blow out, but if I just turn this on, you can see that's delivering plenty of air. So I'll take it out the front, and we'll make up some soapy water. I've already checked, and this will go into the exhaust fairly well. I might add some rag around it too, maybe. I'll see how it goes. But all I need to do is establish where the bubbles are coming out, and it's done its job. So here's the shock vac, and there's the exhaust. So I'm going to get my wife to hold onto here. Oh, something heating up, to stop that from blowing out. Here's my squirty bottle. We shall see if this can, because whenever you go to look, it's so hot. So we'll see if we can find bubbles. Alright, here we go.
1 minute.
Not seen any bubbles yet. Alright, we'll see what... Well, the early conclusion is that it's leaking out of this flange gasket. I've got a bit of an oil leak underneath here, and I've got other jobs to do, but yes, so I'm trying to get this done now, out and off, and I'll see what the flange gasket's like. If it's just a flange gasket, I feel lucky. Well, I think I found it. If you look carefully, the flange is pulled through here. The flare on the pipe, and you can see the exhaust there. It's been blowing out through here. So I need to knock that flange back and see if it's possible to rescue that as it is. Now, I've done a fair bit of work on the back of this. I've changed the hanger down in the middle before the exhaust, you can maybe see that, and I've fixed the hanger at the back. Both of those had wire. My dad's into fixing it up with wire. Say True Blue, there's a song. Tie it up with wire to get it back on the road. I'm not a believer in that, so I replaced the bracket and I fixed a bracket down the back that had a rivet that was broken. I replaced it with a bolt. But now I've got this set up still with the shop vac, and I cleaned all of this up, pulled that apart, but there is still a gap here at that point there. And if you look, you can see that over this side here, there's hardly any gap, and over here, it's a big gap. So that says to me that that exhaust is coming up at the wrong angle. So what I'm thinking of doing, I've got my new MIG with gas. If I pie cut down here somewhere, around here, and then fold this pipe so that it comes in at more of an angle here, and get that straight, I should be able to get rid of this leak. But yeah, turning on the air's just pouring out here. There's still a big gap there. So it doesn't matter how tight you tighten up that flange, it's never going to seal while that gap's there. So I'll go and do that now. Well, I've done my first round. I've changed the angle of that. I took a pie out of that side here, wider here, and I've bent this so it's leaning out that way to match the exhaust. I have two little tiny holes that I missed with my MIG, one on this side over here and one in the middle over there. Can I show you? Anyway, there's tiny little, couple of little tiny little holes. I don't know whether you can see, I don't know whether it's in focus, it's very hard. Anyway, there's a little tiny hole on this side and another one on that. So I will just put a little tack on them, but this is now leaning over to the left at the top, probably 10 degrees more than it was, 5, something like that. And I'll show you when I get it in place, but it's actually sitting way better. But along with that, when I started looking, can't really see. I might have to get my light. It's a little hard to see, but there is actually exhaust along here. You can just actually see it a little bit. And if we come from over here, there's actually exhaust you can see up in here, in there. Can't really see, but anyway, there's exhaust up here. So it is apparently, well, no, up there. Hang on, I will change the light. Right, there is exhaust all in this area here, underneath there, and it looks to me like the exhaust manifold gasket is blown in this point here. But yeah, if you look here, you can see that don't know whether you can see the angle, but this flange here is actually coming out pointing to the right, It's not coming down straight, it's actually pointing in toward the motor. And the exhaust pipe previously was sitting at an angle to that, whereas now if we lift this up and put that up onto there, it is sitting way more correctly. It is sitting way more correctly than it was. And I actually put the vacuum on again, and you could feel that it was actually sealed all around this flange here, but it was leaking up in here. So I will, actually might be able to show you, there's a tiny little mark there. There, that one. Next to my thumb, there's a tiny little hole there. And there's another one of a similar size on the other side. But other than that, I actually cut the pie. I cut the pie on this. Let's see if we can get the focus. And clamped it onto the flange. And again, got my little jack, another little jack, and jacked up underneath here and pushed it into place with the flange not bolted up, but it in place, that holding in place. Actually, no, I put the flange onto here and screwed it on, and then I pushed it and I got it. No, I didn't put the flange on initially. Yeah, because I kept cutting, and I got it so it was pushed up with the jack, so that this was actually in line. And once I got it so that was cut where it was sitting correctly, I then put the flange on here and really put the pressure on with the jack to get that sitting as well as I could, and then I welded with it jacked into place and clamped up on the flange. And then once I got it all put together strong enough, I dropped the flange off and put it down here where I could get to it better and get to it all the way around, and I welded that up. And yeah, like I said, I've got a tiny little mark in here somewhere where it didn't quite finish. Yeah, just in there somewhere where it wasn't quite finished, and the same on the other side. So I'll just put 2 tacks on. This is a case of good grinding making up for bad welding, but with the MIG using gas, you don't get slag all through it, so it means you can put on silly welds and you don't have holes all through it with slag. So definitely thumbs up to the gas MIG rather than flux core wire. And yeah, I'll tack these little holes up and then grind it. And then I'm going to take this manifold off. It's only 6 bolts. They were out about 5 or 6 years ago. We put new heads on it. So hopefully they'll come out all right. I'll see what the damage is. I've already checked. I can't get a replacement gasket today. It's Sunday. But I can get one for Tuesday next week, apparently. Okay, so there it is. I've done the other side as well. So that's my first successful exhaust welding, but I've never had a MIG before. And funnily enough, having the right tools can make it easier. So now I'll take the exhaust manifold off. Now the bolts came out all right. The gasket was an absolute mess. This is just looking at... The head looks okay, which is good. But this here looks like it's gone too low. Now those surfaces, whilst a bit, they're rough, but they don't look gone. But that looks like there's a pit here. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to put a cut across there on my little mill. It really appears that the face of this was bowed. When you put a straight edge or put that on the clamp on the table face down, these 2 parts are high and this is sitting up. I haven't put a feeler gauge underneath, but I'm going to guess 0.2, 0.3 of a mil. I'm going to guess that when we got this machined, they machined each individual lobe, but they didn't machine the whole lot in one go. So I have put this on here, I clamped it onto those standoffs, onto the end faces, and I've machined these 2 witnesses here and here, and they're level to each other. So I'm not going to flip it over and put packers underneath here so it clears this, and clamp onto the manifold here and here, and it should be clamped without any stress on it, and it should be parallel to these faces since I machined them with those faces clamped onto these standoffs. So I'll clamp that down and we'll see how we go. When I start working on this stuff, I kind of forget I'm trying to video it. So I machined those two pads there and there onto the manifold, so they're square to these faces. And I've set this up so I can actually get this in one travel. It just makes it. So I'll now, this was sitting on a packer that was the same height as that, so they should be even, and this was actually sitting high, so this will be the point that decides how everything finishes up, because that's going to be the lowest point here. But as you can see, I've just machined this pad. I've got a little scar there, but I just touched it. It wouldn't matter if well, it would matter because I'm just going to bridge it to the outside, but I don't think that's going to be the final height, because I think this is going to need to be taken down. So I will start machining that. I've machined that one. Was just to get a witness. I've got this little tiny bit here that is my witness to say I took no more than I had to. And look here, I zeroed it, but it's about, I took about 1.6 millimeters off that face in relation to that face to get that cleaned up. Admittedly, you know, the last mil or so of it was to clean up this spot here, or a bit over half mil. But anyway, I've got that zeroed, so now I'll do both ends, machine both ends to the zero. Here's the finished machine part. You see that little discoloration, but it's actually not, it's not really an undercut, it's just more of a discoloration. I could take another 0.1 off the whole thing, or 0.05, but it's not, I think it's just to change the colour. It's actually machined. You can actually see the machine marks over the top of it actually, so it's alright. And there's the other ends. And what's more, if I put a straight edge on it, that is actually sitting flat on all 3 points. So, and it doesn't rock at all. So that's clamped, again, as I say, it's clamped here and here onto these packers, onto those machine pads. And I'm clamped straight on the top of them, so there shouldn't be any flex in that. So when I let that go, it shouldn't move. But I had to take 1.8 millimeters off the end of this and there to clean that up. So that may give us a very reasonable explanation why that gasket didn't stay. That discoloration is bothering me a little bit, but it isn't actually low. It's just a discoloration. So if it gets the better of me, I'll take another 0.05 off, but I don't think I'll bother. There it is. Just deburred it. So I put a file across it, just flat on it, like this, and it does not rock. That was clamped on the table when I did it, but it does not rock at all. And you put that on, it goes straight across. Of course, there is no reason why it should bow. So there is machined exhaust manifold. I've now cleaned these faces all up and they look alright. This one's the worst. There's a little bit of pitting on here, but I think it's just a bit of pitting, and that'll be because of all the blow-by we've had. But it looks okay. I've ordered a gasket. I had to buy a gasket kit, so I get two, so I get a spare. I'm going to assume that they're able to be interchanged. Don't think there's a left and a right. But, getting coolant out of both ends, but there's a Welsh plug just on the other side of it. So I'm going to guess that that's right. These heads were remachined. These were replacement heads maybe 5 years ago, and it's done very little driving since then, so they should be all right. So that's all scrape ready for the reassembly. So I just have to wait for the gasket to come in. It should be in on Tuesday, and it's day after tomorrow. Yes, and I'm quite happy with this. That looks like it'll be right. So now, these are the bolts that came out, so I might give them a bit of a, I gave them a bit of love yesterday, oiled them up and whatever, but I'll give these a bit of a go on the wire wheel. Here is the now reinstalled manifold with gasket, and here is the flange, and there is no gap here, and this is the welded tube. So there's a couple of little bits like that that annoy me, but I don't think it's actually a major problem. We shall see. But I just looked over here, and to my shock and horror, this side I've never thought leaked. But we can see here, there's soot here, and that flange is coming in at the wrong angle on this side too. So, depending on how keen I feel at some stage, I might have to do some sort of a pie cut up in here to turn the angle of that. Or I don't know, maybe I might even take it to an exhaust place. But that flange on this side is not right, and we can see that it is actually leaking a little bit. Oh well, here we go. I'm going to test it now this side, but that all looks like it should. Now that flange is on the correct angle. It's really nice and solid. I haven't even put the clamps down the back, but this is sitting really well. So I will turn on the vac and we'll see if it gets any air out, and I'll be very sad if it does. So this clamp is on, and that is pretty good. And that clamp is remade. There it is. And that's all like it should be, I think. Sadly, I have to say that the smear I saw on that other side flange gasket is having the exact effect I thought it would. There is a noise from this side as well, but it was so noisy from the other side I couldn't hear the leak on this side. So this pipe here is coming up at the wrong angle, and there is a real opening on this side here. Yeah, yeah, there's an opening right up in behind here. That lead pipe is leaning, obviously leaning in, no, leaning out too far. No, leaning in too far. So it needs to come out. It needs to come over this way. But I won't be looking at that today. It's got Rego day after tomorrow. But if we give it a kick, you can hear that blow by down here. But this side, which was the noisy side, is way better. There is still slight misalignment down in here, or I did put a file on the flange coming out of the taper, coming out of the manifold, but it's not really getting inside that pipe exactly right. But I have to say that this car has not sounded quite this clean for quite a long time. Got a bit of water coming out the exhaust. This pipe is now on a slight angle out, but I'm not too distressed at the moment. I think that water is coming out because when I took the manifold off, on each end, the head, the threaded bolt for the manifold goes through into the water jacket, and it was leaking. I don't know. Not sure about that. I hope it's not a sign of anything bad, but it is sounding way better. So I'll close up the bonnet and there's another job. I need to change the gas struts on this, but I'll get it down off these stands and might take it for a little run.